Teri Moren and the Indiana Hoosier women's basketball team are on another continent right now, and not even that can stop them from winning.
You are Locked On Hoosiers, your daily podcast on the Indiana Hoosiers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Friday, everybody. You are Locked On Hoosiers, the one and only daily IU podcast, part of the Locked On Network, your team every day. I'm your host, as always, Jacob. I want to thank you guys for making us your first listen, wherever you may be tuning in from. Teri Moren and the Hoosiers, something that had slipped my mind. I would have mentioned it on our podcast Monday with Talia Goodman. Had a trip scheduled to Greece that they left on August 1st, slated to be there August 1st through the 10th, playing 2 games during that trip. They're going to be all over Greece over the next 10 days. First game they had slated was on Thursday, and the Hoosiers took the court against, I'm going to be honest, I don't really know who. They tabbed themselves the Greece All-Stars. The Greek All-Stars even, but it was not much of a contest. So starting for the Hoosiers, we have the box score. The game was, I was going to say televised. It was streamed online on YouTube. You can go back and watch the game now. I caught a bit of it live and then went back and watched it after the fact. Starting for the Hoosiers, it was a bit of a mixed lineup. So you had Sarah Scalia, Sydney Parrish, Chloe Moore McNeil, Lexus Bargesser, and Lily Meister were your starters. Couple notes of people who are and aren't available. Yarden Garzon was not with the team the last 2 weeks that they were practicing in Bloomington. She met them in Greece. She's been in Israel, her home country, for a good chunk of this offseason. She played with them, the national team, and then had been there and joined the team in Greece. Hannah Sandvik, similarly, she's not with the team right now. She is competing with Finland's under 20 team. And then Mackenzie Holmes is not playing. She's with them. She's not playing in this trip or these couple of exhibition games. Now, do not worry. She's not playing, quote, out of an abundance of caution. Teri Moren says she's completely healthy. They are just making sure nothing happens. I cannot imagine anything worse than losing your All-American on a trip around Greece in exhibition games. But the Hoosiers still had plenty of firepower. The stats are kind of meaningless a bit. They won this game 120-50, and they scored at least 20 points in every quarter. They outscored this Greek All-Star team 29-9 in the second, 22-5 in the fourth. Just, they were on fire from everywhere. They were 48 of 85 from the field. That's 56%. They were 16 of 37 from 3, 43%. They had 36 assists on 48 field goals. A ton of double-digit scores. All but one person who played scored, and all but 3 people who played scored in double figures. So it was a fun time. It was certainly an exhibition game. A couple of observations. It's really hard to take a lot away from this, especially kind of when it comes to play styles and things like that. This was a really fast-paced game. I don't know that that's necessarily indicative of something IU wants to do this season. I think it probably had more to do with the fact that the Greek team had 23 turnovers, with 17 of those being steals, so live ball turnovers that the Hoosiers were routinely turning into layups and points on the other end. I don't think there was anything. I don't know that this is – Indiana might play fast, but it's not something that you can take away from this game, I don't think. What you can take away, although, again, this might be partly because of who they played, IU looked really big, just overmatching this team And part of it, again, is the opponent. But you look at the roster, and IU is really gaining a lot of size. Garzon, Meister, Holmes, all at 6'3", Curry Jelks, Sidney Parrish at 6'2", Lenee Beaumont, LaMendola, Sandvik, all at 6 foot, and Chloe Moore McNeil and Sarah Scallier are 5'11" and 5'10". This is a big, and Ariel Wisney as well at 6'5". This is a big IU roster. And regardless of who they were playing, that is something I took away from this. I think back to the IU UConn Sweet 16 game a couple seasons ago. The Hoosiers lost that game. Excuse me. One of the things I kind of took away from that game was IU was just kind of physically outmatched. They did not have the size that UConn did, and that was something of a next step they needed to take. They had this talented roster, but they had a lot of players who just weren't physically tall, strong, built. UConn had a lot more kind of bigger athletes than Indiana did. You look at this roster, and that gap is closing rapidly, honestly. Indiana is really getting a lot of bigger athletes, and two players we're going to talk about, Beaumont and LaMendola, really, that might be something we haven't talked about enough, is how big they are and how much they're going to help that this season. So IU was really big. They played really fast. They looked really good. It was hardly anything more than a glorified scrimmage. Nobody was really taking this game all that serious. IU was, they made it rain from the 3-point line. They attempted 37 threes, 85 total field goals. So everything, almost half their shots were from range. So the Hoosiers were certainly having fun with this. I didn't really pay a lot of attention to lineups, to things like that, because I don't imagine that they're going to be installing a whole lot of really serious things during this trip. Teri Moren talked about it's good to have this trip, and they got a couple of weeks of practice beforehand, but it's a lot more about kind of the experience of going around Greece, the bonding, things like that. So as much as anything, I think that's what matters about this trip. That being said, I think there are a couple observations you can make about the roster and maybe some of the things we saw, maybe the basis of some things we saw that I want to talk about and kind of take a look at. And maybe it's something that comes up once a season starts. We'll do that here in a moment. We need to talk first about LinkedIn. It's one of the sponsors of today's episode. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. And guys, there's no better place to do that than LinkedIn Jobs. They help you find the right people for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn Jobs, super simple. I'm sure most people listening have a LinkedIn. If you guys do, you can head on over there, create a job listing, add that and your purple hiring hashtag, purple hashtag hiring frame. Say that 10 times fast to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. The best part is LinkedIn has questions that make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and expertise so that you guys can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. A lot less wasted time, a lot more focus on those perfect candidates. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs number one in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Big thanks to you guys for making us your first listen every day. We're back daily this week. So everydayers, you got caught up on a lot of things. Monday, we talked women's basketball, recap the offseason, which turned out to be a very timely piece as they were getting set to go to Greece and start playing some games. We had recruiting Wednesday for the men's basketball team. And then we sprinkled in a lot of football, some soccer, some IU swimming throughout the week. So a lot for you guys to catch up on if you missed it. Let's talk about a couple kind of observations I had about the women's basketball team during this game. One thing I would note is that I think this roster has a lot of versatility. Part of that you can look at today's game, but I think overall it's something that you can look at the roster and what we know IU has and make that observation as well. There's a lot of players that are going to be able to play in I think different play styles as well. We spoke about Curry Jelks, who played on Thursday. She finished with 15 points in 13 minutes. She didn't attempt any shots around the perimeter. That's something that seems like is possible to be added to her game. Again, there's not a lot you can take away from a scrimmage against a Greek All-Star team, but you can see that she certainly has the ability to play in space and is a good athlete. And you look at someone like that, and if IU wants to try to play a little bit of small ball this year, which is not a luxury they've had in a long time, it's not a bad thing. Mackenzie Holmes is an All-American, but you don't really play small ball with her. If IU wants to spread the floor out a little bit, I think Curry Jelks could be a great small ball five and someone you can put out there and change up the play style if things aren't working and maybe get a little bit of a spark going. Garzon obviously is someone that can play as a four, and she's naturally going to space the floor as well. So it offers a different look for the Hoosiers. Indiana also has a lot of guards, but they don't necessarily overlap in skill set. The two freshmen for Indiana looked really good. And overall, I think there's three young players that are set for really big roles this season. Lexus Bargesser, who started, as we mentioned, played kind of sparingly last season and had moments throughout the season, which typically for a freshman under Teri Moren is a sign of confidence. Garzon kind of shifted things a little bit because she came in, started, and was incredible from day one. That was very much the exception to the rule when it comes to Teri Moren. Bargesser, I thought, relatively speaking to previous seasons, played a fair amount in some big games as a freshman, which made me believe that Teri Moren really saw something in her. She played 25 minutes on Thursday, 17 points, 4 assists, 4 steals, was 8 of 10 from the field, the 2 misses being 2 3-pointers. Bargesser is someone that I think is going to step in and play a good amount. We've talked a lot about who's going to replace Grace Berger, someone who could do a lot of the ball handling, maybe some of the playmaking, some of the finishing at the rim, I think, is Lexus Bargesser. She flashed that last season. She's a bigger player as well. Or, excuse me, she's one of the few not big players, but still finishes at the rim. She is the smallest player on IU's roster, but still has a really good ability to finish at the rim. And I think that's something this team doesn't have a lot of players capable of doing right now. That's maybe a hole that she can fill. So I think she's going to play a lot, but the two freshmen were really impressive in a number of ways. Jules LaMendola, Lenee Beaumont. The biggest thing to me is just physically, they look ready. Like, we talk a lot on the men's side about how physical the Big Ten is and how there's just like a physical maturation you have to do. Just getting to college and getting on a real strength training regiment and schedule and how it kind of takes some time to adjust. That's true in the women's game as well, but both Beaumont and LaMendola look like they have been on that type of strength training regiment. They look like upperclassmen physically. Like, they have really big bodies that I think that's going to allow them to physically stand up in the Big Ten. I think both of these players are going to play a lot of minutes for the Hoosiers this season. They got a lot of minutes on Thursday. Beaumont played 24 minutes, had 7 points, 8 assists, and 2 steals. LaMendola played 20 minutes, 15 points, 4 assists. Everybody on IU's roster had just a ton of assists. I mean, you don't get to 36 without a lot of them, but everybody, IU was really passing the ball on Thursday. LaMendola knocked down a couple of threes, was making some plays defensively. She went 6 of 9 from the field, 3 of 6 from 3. If she can step in and be someone that's going to be able to knock down threes, that alone is going to get her some playing time. Beaumont, meanwhile, is kind of that big guard that Teri Moren likes, that I think there's probably a good chance she's going to be I think she could be the backup point guard for this team next season. She's someone that really showed a lot in terms of finding teammates and setting the table for teammates. LaMendola can do that a bit, but she looks more kind of like a wing almost than a ball handler. And that's not a bad thing. IU can use that size on the perimeter. She's listed at 6'1", but she has a lot of size to her, and I think she can handle playing on the wing. Whereas, I mean, Beaumont's not small. She's 6'1" as well. These two looked ready for the moment, whatever the moment was, playing against the Greek All-Star teams. That might not be the best analogy, but they look ready to contribute right away. So I was really impressed by both of them. They didn't look like typical freshmen. They looked like two players. I mean, they were Gatorade State Players of the Year in their respective states. So two players that I think are going to come in, and I think they're going to get big minutes this season. They both look ready to contribute right away for this team. Again, we've talked about this a number of times. IU hasn't had a ton of depth in previous seasons, but if you're looking at this backcourt or looking kind of around the perimeter, I think Bargesser, Beaumont, LaMendola, all are going to get minutes. Add in Scalia, Chloe Moore McNeil, Sydney Parrish. You're quickly at 6 players that are able to play around the perimeter. IU hasn't had that level of depth in the guard position in many years again. So I think that is a luxury this team is really going to have. And if it keeps players healthy and keeps the minutes down and keeps them fresh heading into the tournament, that's even better. It also offers you a lot of different variety and looks, again, which goes back to the versatility point I made. So I came away from this really excited about what this IU basketball team could be. They play again tomorrow, Saturday at noon. I'm not certain that it's going to be televised. I didn't know this one was going to be televised until the IU women's basketball Twitter account tweeted out a link to the game. So perhaps pay attention to that Twitter account. See if they tweet something out with a stream of the game to watch. If you guys want to tune in on Saturday and watch the IU women play, but encouraging things, some exciting things seem to be in store for this women's basketball team. It's going to be fun to watch them again, but then that's going to be a long wait with a lot of exciting things we will have just seen before they finally get on the court this fall/winter. So you guys can tune into that on Saturday. We will have takeaways from it, again, observations from it on Monday's episode, whether you guys are able to catch it or not. There's a lot of conference realignment talk. I haven't talked a ton about it because it doesn't really directly impact IU, but it's getting kind of hard to ignore. So let's have a discussion on conference realignment and if it really does impact the Hoosiers, what it might look like, things like that. We'll do all that here in just a moment. But let's talk about our other sponsor now for today's episode. Teri Moren and the Hoosiers women's basketball team won the Big Ten title. They were a championship team last season. And for a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. There were a lot of perfect fits on the Hoosiers last season, especially in that starting lineup. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check to know the part will fit, or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. Let's talk about conference realignment. Locked On Big Ten is certainly doing a lot more covering it. And I mean, that's kind of their lane. We're Locked On Hoosiers. There isn't a lot to cover in that regard from our side of things. So I haven't discussed it a lot. I've certainly paid attention to it. It is a interesting situation. I mean, we talked about this a bit last summer. I think a lot of people assume this as well, but RIP to the Pac-12 slash Pac-10 slash Pac-8, whatever they're going to be. It certainly seems like they're not going to be it much longer. It seems like that conference is just crumbling to pieces, and everybody's racing to kind of pick up the scraps. The Big 12 probably is going to be a big winner in this regard, and there's going to be a Big 12 joint conference. Seems like with a lot of the teams moving forward. It again, once UCLA and USC left, the writing was kind of on the wall. It would say it's rough. I don't like that the Pac-10, Pac-12 is. I mean, again, as we talk, or as I talk, I know that there's kind of one last ditch meeting. I don't know that it's going to work, but they are certainly in for some drastic changes, and it's a storied conference that is potentially facing its end. So I don't love it from that regard. I don't even really like it from that regard. I'm not a huge fan of realignment, and I say that as an Indiana fan who this doesn't really impact. I mean, it indirectly impacts Indiana. We're going to UCLA and USC and stuff like that, but we're not moving anywhere, and Indiana's not going anywhere. And so it just stinks to kind of see how things are playing out. How are things going to play out? I would imagine the Big Ten is going to pick up a couple more schools from the Pac-12. Washington and Oregon probably seem the likeliest to make the most sense. Something to pay attention to. The Big Ten only brings in AAU schools. You can Google that and look it up. It has to do with their academics. So there are a number of Pac-12 schools that doesn't apply to, but Washington and Oregon fit that bill. Now the Big Ten might change its kind of requirements or change course a little bit. I don't imagine they will, but they could. I mean, the end goal or the end result of this, I think, is going to be that there's going to be a 20-team conference. The Big Ten will be, maybe not immediately this year, in the coming days or weeks, but I think it's going to end up being 20 teams in 2 divisions of 10, which it would make more sense to pick up some teams out west to add to the UCLA, USC, remnants of the Pac-12, those schools and whatnot to mitigate some travel. But again, I don't know that really impacts Indiana. They're pretty far east relative to the rest of the Big Ten. So I don't know that it's going to change anything for them. Like again, if the end goal is 20 teams, I don't know that Indiana is going to be in a division with UCLA or USC. There's rumors about Florida State and Clemson. That might change things because obviously those teams are farther east. We're not that far away from there being a Big Ten and an SEC and maybe a Big 12, and then that's kind of it. I don't know that there is going. I honestly, within 5 years, I think it's going to be 2 super conferences and a lot of small other conferences around. Again, it's not fun. It kind of stinks, but money talks, and money is talking loudly to the Big Ten and the SEC right now. So, as I said, not a lot of this really impacts the Hoosiers. If there is a move, we'll certainly talk about it and try to find an angle to discuss how it impacts Indiana. But my overall thought is just kind of a little bit of sadness that this is how a conference like the Pac-12 is kind of coming to an end. That's what modern college athletics has become. And so it's unfortunate, maybe not entirely unexpected. Let me know what you guys think. Who do you want to see join the Big Ten from the Pac-12, from the ACC, even the Big 12 maybe? Who do you guys want to see join the Big Ten? Who do you think will join the Big Ten? Let me know either in the comments below. You can do that as well over on Twitter at LO_Hoosiers. Give us a follow over there. You can do it on a review on iTunes and let me know what you guys think of conference realignment and whether the Big Ten should add Washington and Oregon. But thanks as always, guys, for making Locked On Hoosiers your first listen every day. Again, everydayers, plenty to listen to over the last week. And then on Monday, we'll be back to talk about the women's basketball team and their second scrimmage in Greece as well. Thank you guys for all the support as we're back to a daily podcast. Lots more football talk coming as fall camp continues. Appreciate all the love and support. Everybody, hope you have a great Friday. Hope you have a great weekend. And as always, LEO.